The boardroom was packed with high-powered executives, the air thick with arrogance and entitlement. She walked in, confident, polished, ready to lead, but in seconds, her authority was shattered. A billionaire sneered, mocking her in front of everyone, and the humiliation hit like a lightning bolt. Every eye turned, some shocked, some entertained, but her mind was sharp, calm, calculating. In that moment, she realized this wasn't just a personal attack. It was a symbol of the power and prejudice that ran through the very heart of corporate America. Could she turn this public embarrassment into a lesson they'd never forget? What she did next would flip the boardroom upside down forever. It had been a typical morning for Maya Lawson, one of the youngest black CEOs to rise in the cutthroat world of corporate finance. Her office overlooked the city skyline, sunlight glinting off the glass towers that represented the empire she had helped build. Despite her accomplishments, she remained humble, precise, and always prepared. Today, however, was different. The annual board meeting promised high stakes, with billionaires, investors, and powerful executives packed into the sleek, glass-walled room. Maya adjusted her blazer, straightened her notes, and took a deep breath. She had faced discrimination before, subtle microaggressions, whispered doubts, but nothing could have prepared her for what awaited. As she stepped into the room, the chatter died down. Eyes scrutinized her, some curious, some hostile. She gave a calm smile, projecting the confidence she had worked years to earn. Then, it happened. Across the polished table, the billionaire she had clashed with on previous projects leaned back, smirked, and in front of the entire board, made a dismissive, cutting remark about her capabilities. Laughter erupted from a few corners, subtle nods from others. Maya felt the sting of public humiliation, but she didn't flinch. Her calm gaze swept the room, measuring, calculating. She knew that this was more than a personal attack. It was a window into the corporate world's deep-rooted biases and the subtle ways power and privilege worked against people like her. In that tense moment, Maya's mind raced not with fear, but with strategy. Every insult, every scoff, was a clue. She would need to turn this humiliation into leverage, to expose what the board had hidden behind polite smiles and conference room pleasantries. The tension hung in the air, electric and heavy, as the room waited, unaware that the very person they thought was broken was about to become the one in control. Maya remained standing, her spine straight, her calmness masking the storm inside. The billionaire continued, speaking over her, dismissing her ideas, belittling her achievements with thinly veiled sarcasm. Every word was designed to provoke, to make her falter. But she didn't. She let him speak, taking mental notes of every glance, every whisper, every smirk. She noticed the subtle alliances forming, executives nodding at his remarks, some shuffling papers nervously, afraid to challenge him. The room's atmosphere was suffocating, heavy with power dynamics and unspoken rules. Maya recalled the countless times she had been underestimated, overlooked, and stereotyped. She felt a familiar burn of anger, but instead of reacting impulsively, she channeled it into focus. She had come prepared, not just with her reports, but with insight, evidence, and strategy that could dismantle the facade these billionaires clung to. As the meeting progressed, she began presenting her data, highlighting achievements, risks, and opportunities with unwavering clarity. But each slide was met with interruptions, snide comments, dismissive laughter, even one executive audibly rolling his eyes. Maya felt the weight of their judgment, yet she pressed on, her voice steady, precise, refusing to give them the satisfaction of seeing her shaken. Every challenge, every microaggression, became fuel for her determination. Midway through the session, the billionaire escalated. He leaned forward, voice sharp, attempting to humiliate her with a personal jab about her background, insinuating she didn't belong in a room of people like them. The tension spiked. A few board members shifted uncomfortably. Phones discreetly recorded the moment, an unspoken risk he didn't realize he was taking. Maya paused, letting the weight of his words hang in the air, then calmly responded, not with anger, but with an undeniable logic and evidence-backed argument that exposed the flaws in his claim. A ripple of surprise ran through the room. The more he tried to dominate, the more the room's cracks began to show. Executives whispered among themselves, some clearly questioning his authority, others impressed by Maya's composure. She noticed their reactions, using them as leverage. Every slight, every attempt to humiliate her, became a stepping stone toward turning the boardroom upside down. By the end of the meeting's middle phase, the billionaire's arrogance began to falter. His smirk wavered. His voice, once confident, started to stumble. Maya didn't attack, she simply revealed the truth, layer by layer, letting the evidence speak. Reports he had ignored, unethical decisions he had made, favoritism he had shown, all subtly but unmistakably highlighted in her presentation. Finally, as the room leaned in, the billionaire's authority visibly cracking, Maya delivered a question that struck at the heart of the boardroom's morality. If leadership is about power alone, what does that make the rest of us? Silence fell. Phone still recording. The tension was palpable. The public humiliation he tried to inflict on her had now become a mirror, reflecting his own failures, arrogance, and prejudice. The room was silent. Every eye fixed on Maya as she stepped closer to the table, her presence commanding without a word. The billionaire, who had spent the entire meeting trying to humiliate her, now found himself shrinking under the weight of his own arrogance. Maya opened her laptop, projecting charts, emails, and evidence that revealed not just her performance, but the reckless, biased, and self-serving decisions he had made over the years. Gasps echoed around the room. The executives who had once whispered and smirked could no longer hide their shock. Each piece of evidence struck like a hammer, exposing corruption, favoritism, and prejudice that had been quietly tolerated. Maya's voice, calm but piercing, cut through the tension. The success of this company isn't measured by power, but by integrity, fairness, and vision. And it seems we've forgotten that. The billionaire's smirk faltered. He tried to respond, to regain control, but Maya anticipated every word. Every argument he made was dismantled by data, logic, and undeniable facts. The boardroom, once a chamber of intimidation, had transformed into a stage where truth and competence held the spotlight. Phones were recording, eyes were watching, and the power dynamic had shifted entirely. Then came the final blow. Maya revealed a confidential audit, previously ignored, showing financial mismanagement and favoritism that implicated him directly. The board murmured, shocked, some executives nodding at her courage, others frozen in disbelief. Maya didn't gloat. She simply stood, letting the evidence speak for itself, her calm gaze unwavering. The billionaire tried to speak again, but his voice was weak, faltering under the collective scrutiny. Maya's question lingered in the air. If leadership is about dominance, what legacy does that leave behind? Every member of the board now realized that the humiliation he had tried to inflict on her had backfired spectacularly. The tables had turned, and the room had become a mirror reflecting not her weakness, but his own flaws and prejudice. As the meeting adjourned, whispers of awe and disbelief followed Maya out of the room. She had walked in under attack, yet she left with authority undeniable, exposing injustice without losing her dignity. The billionaire's public arrogance had crumbled, replaced by a lesson in humility and respect that no one would forget. Maya stepped out of the boardroom, the city skyline gleaming behind her. The meeting had ended, but the impact of what had just occurred would ripple far beyond those glass walls. The billionaire's arrogance had been publicly exposed, his attempts to belittle her turned into a lesson in humility. Yet Maya didn't celebrate in vanity. Her victory was quiet, measured, and purposeful. She had shown that power and respect are earned, not imposed, and that dignity can never be stolen. No matter how public the humiliation, news of the confrontation quietly spread, whispers turning into headlines, social media posts capturing snippets of her calm authority amidst the chaos. People who had once doubted her or underestimated her because of her race or gender were forced to confront the truth. Competence, courage, and integrity cannot be overshadowed by privilege or arrogance. Maya's journey was not just personal. It was emblematic of the systemic challenges many face in spaces dominated by power and bias. Her composure, strategy, and unwavering focus turned an intended humiliation into a masterclass of leadership and resilience. The boardroom, once a theater of intimidation, had become a stage for accountability and justice. Walking through the city streets later that evening, Maya reflected on the lessons of the day. She knew that for every victory, there were countless others still fighting similar battles. Her story was a reminder that injustice can be challenged, that dignity can be reclaimed, and that courage often lies in quiet, calculated strength rather than loud confrontation. The question lingered in her mind and now in the minds of everyone who witnessed or heard about it. How many times do we allow arrogance and prejudice to dictate outcomes before we choose to stand firm, to expose the truth, and demand justice? Maya had taken her stand. The world had watched. And one thing was certain: no one who had tried to humiliate her would ever forget the lesson she delivered.